Hey guys, what's going on? So today I'm going to be working on the Civic. We're going to be putting in a new radiator because the old one was leaking. Boom, new radiator from eBay. It was like pretty cheap. It was under 50 bucks, but I'll post it down below so you're able to see. And maybe you want to use the exact same one too for your application. One thing that you might have noticed if you saw it on that radiator is it does not have a section for the trans fluid to go through and be cooled as well. You're either going to have to just route your transmission lines together and then they won't be cooled necessarily. You can go either find a trans cooler from a junkyard, and I'll show you guys the one that I found. I actually had one sitting around at my house. I just kind of saw it and I was like, oh yeah, I could totally use that. So it was just a little trans cooler from some other car. I'm just gonna put it in the front of the car somewhere and it'll work perfectly fine. Instead of just connecting two lines for the trans fluid, it's just the cooling lines won't be used anymore for their intended purpose. But yeah, I'm gonna be taking it out, which I already did. I'm gonna be switching the fan over to the new unit, and then I'm going to be plugging everything back up, taking you guys along the way and showing you the things that I saw when I was doing it and what you might be able to do to make your time a bit easier. So let's get started. Alright guys, so we are in the front of the car now, and you can see there's a ton of tools and stuff, and there's something missing here that should be right here. But you guys are going to get to this step most likely all on your own because it's not that difficult. It's relatively simple. I would definitely start by draining the radiator out. There's the little drain right here. If you start to turn it, it'll start to come out of this little hole here. If you pull the whole thing out, it'll drain out of this. Once it starts to drain, I would pop your radiator cap off, and then it'll drain a little bit quicker. You can see I got my catch pan underneath there with all the old the old antifreeze that's inside of it. One thing to note when you start to take this off, first you're gonna have to take off your overfill can. It just slides out on a Civic. You can see that little groove right there, and it'll slide out of this bracket here. You do not need to take this bracket off. You could just slide it, pull it right on out. Obviously you want to take the cap and the hose off first. Alright, so second, you're going to go ahead and this is going to be hooked up here, holding your radiator in. You're going to want to take that off. It's a 10mm bolt. Alright, so your radiator is only going to be connected here and here up until this point, and it's going to be loose as well. You're going to have the return hose at the top. Actually, this is the fill hose. The return is going to be at the bottom, taking it back up into the engine, I believe. I could be wrong. Whatever. But you're going to need to take both of these hoses off, hopefully once your whole radiator has been drained, because otherwise you're going to get shit everywhere. Now the fun part is going to be that trans line and this one over here. This one is going to have more fluid, or a consistent flow of fluid coming out of it compared to this one. So what I did is when I pulled them off, which I made the mistake of the first time, is not putting a bolt. So you're going to want to make sure that you plug these two up before you proceed, because otherwise you will get a bunch of trans fluid everywhere. If you do get trans fluid on the floor, I did, I'm going to have to check my trans fluid before I go drive around a bit later on today. So one of the big reasons that we're going to have a trans cooler on ours is you can see that here is where the transmission went into the radiator beforehand. And if you look on our new radiator, this is the bottom, and we do not have those same options on that one. So to fix that problem, right here I got a trans cooler off of some other car, or an oil cooler. It doesn't matter if it's an oil or a trans cooler, but it will work perfectly fine. I'm going to disconnect. Well, my shadow is really fucking this up. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect these here, and I'm going to I'm going to disconnect the ones in the car off of the metal lining, and then I'm going to use these ones because I believe the ones inside the car are a bit fucked up and these look a lot nicer. So once you get those out and you get all of your hoses disconnected, you should be able to just pull your radiator right out of the car. You'll be able to come over here and take your fan shroud off, fan shroud off, if it still works, which I believe mine does. So I took that off. It's just 4 bolts, 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 over there. They're kind of a bitch to get off because they were super rusty, but that's okay. And then I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall that fan onto the new radiator and then drop the new radiator into the car.
This is a Chucky Beat production.
Alright guys, so where we left off earlier, I was telling you guys how I was taking the fan shroud off and putting it on the new radiator. Now there's a lot more done, and I can show you a couple things of what I have done so far. So first, before I stuck the radiator in, before I stuck this in and all that, the first thing I had to do was check out those trans lines right there and right there. Those run around the radiator. You can see it here, through, in through here, and then they'll pop out down on this end. You can see right over there, that's where they pop out and slide up to the trans cooler, which is this guy that's hanging down right there. I'm going to be putting this somewhere back here on some metal or something once I cut this bracket off that's hanging on it. So once I cut this bracket off, I'll be able to move it a little bit better. Right now, I could just fucking mount it, boom, like that if I wanted to. But what's the fun in that? Let's try to make it look a little bit better. So I ran that. That'll be fixed up in a little bit. I'll jimmy rig that together. Maybe I'll take a video of doing that. But I just went ahead and, put the fan shroud on. I think I got a video of screwing those bolts in, dropping the radiator down into the two holes, and then reconnecting this top part right here to hold it all in place. It's in there pretty well. And then I went ahead and did the lower radiator hose here. Had to get a bigger clamp because the flares that are on, like right here on these tubes, the flares that are on the pipe on the inside are a little bit bigger than the OEM one, so I had to get a different kind of style clamp. Before, the clamps look like this, and they didn't open big enough for the hose to fit over it. So I had to get kind of like a hose clamp, an adjusting one like that with a screw. And then I went ahead and reattached my overflow can, put the overflow can back in here, and I attached my fan wires, which are right underneath that. And now this is where we are. I did have to take off the bumper. The only reason I took the bumper off is because I wanted to have a little bit more of an idea where to put that trans cooler with less shit in the way. Plus, Kelsey's chilling on this blanket right now. She's tanning, so I got a good view while I'm working on the car. Plus, this bumper is all fucked up right in this area. So either I'm going to look at it and see if I can fix it, but if not, I'm just going to tear all of this crap out of here and make it look better. The next step here is going to be to reattach, or actually not reattach, but to fit this other car's trans cooler onto this car. Probably just going to zip tie it. I feel like that's the best way to go. I've also found that I'm going to stick it kind of like this, right here on the frame rail. Alright guys, so I finally got the trans cooler mounted up. All I did was pretty much a zip tie. It took 3 zip ties to put it through a couple things and get it mounted up in the front. So now this whole radiator job is all complete. I found a couple things that I didn't really want to find while I was playing with the Civic. I found an exhaust leak actually coming straight off the headers. So I have to get a new gasket and a couple more of these studs that go into the block. Actually, one of the studs was stripped out. That's exactly why it was leaking in the first place. But thank God that the threads inside of the block are not stripped, which wouldn't be the biggest deal, but we would have to tap and dye it and like just this stuff that I don't want to have to do at the moment. But besides that, thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something or got something, enjoyed yourself while you're hanging out with me, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.